Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So with temperatures soaring outside, it was a good day to get some things done in the kitchen. The garden has been giving me a bunch of zucchini, and I've already made zucchini bread, I've made squash recipes, I've made all sorts of things. And so I decided that the best way to utilize this zucchini and keep it from going to waste would be to shred it and freeze dry it. So as I was reading up on freeze drying zucchini, I read that the skins of zucchini don't like to rehydrate very well, and so it's recommended that you peel these before shredding them and freeze drying them. Now the skins of the zucchinis didn't go to waste. After I was done shredding up my zucchini, I went ahead and pulsed these in my food processor as a nice treat for the chickens on a hot day. Now, a couple of the zucchinis that I pulled out of the garden got a little bit on the bigger side, and they kind of had some seeds really starting to develop in there. And so for the very large zucchinis, I went ahead and cut those seedy cores out and tossed them into the chicken scrap bowl. After I had shredded all of the zucchini, I let it sit in a colander for a couple of hours, and this allowed some of the liquid to drain out, which helps in the freeze drying process. I squeezed out as much of the liquid as I could. Alright, these will get frozen, freeze-dried, and packed away. After I shredded the zucchini for the freeze dryer, I went ahead and shredded up a couple more zucchini to go ahead and use for some recipes. But for the recipe that I'm going to make, I only needed 1 cup. So then I went ahead and I portioned out the rest of the shredded zucchini into some freezer containers, each holding 1 cup. That way I know exactly how much I have for some future recipes. I've had these freezer containers for years and years. They come in all different sizes and they are very handy. Alright, I'm going to get this mess cleaned up and then I'm going to start on my first recipe of the day. Now fairly recently I made some of my mom's zucchini bread, and while the whole family loves this zucchini bread recipe, Mr. Smith especially loves my lemon zucchini bread. This zucchini bread recipe only makes one loaf. It uses the zest of an entire lemon and then a little bit of the juice as well in the batter. I've had some people ask questions about the butter wrappers that I keep in the cupboard. Of course, I keep these for exactly what you see here, greasing pans. And I just keep the jar in the cupboard. Now, if I've got a lot of wrappers, I'll keep the extra ones in the refrigerator. But the ones in the cupboard are going to be used fairly quickly. They keep just fine in there, so it doesn't matter that they're not refrigerated. While the lemon zucchini bread was in the oven baking, I went ahead and got started on the next recipe for the day. I like to get lots of frozen produce from Asia Standard. It's a great source for healthy fruits and vegetables. And I had thawed out a case of strawberries to make a strawberry butter, very similar to apple butter or pumpkin butter. This is a slow cooked, concentrated flavor fruit butter. And one of the things I love about making fruit butters is they usually don't have very much added sugar, much less than you would normally have in a jelly or jam, but you're going to get tons of the fruit flavor. Now, the strawberry butter recipe was actually in one of my Ball Blue books, one of the older ones that I have. I've got 3 of them now, maybe 4 actually, now that I think about it. Now, I don't believe that the new one that just came out actually has this recipe. The lemon zucchini bread is fresh out of the oven, smelling delicious. After it cooled for a couple minutes, I went ahead and removed it from the pan. And I let it finish cooling here on the rack. I like to line my vintage cake pan with some parchment paper, and I just fold up the paper as though I was going to cut snowflakes and just cut it into a circle to fit. Now, this zucchini bread is finished off with a lemon glaze, and as I've shared before, when I'm just mixing up some glaze, I don't generally measure anything. I just scoop out a little bit of powdered sugar and then add enough liquid to make it into a consistency that can be drizzled. In this case, I added some lemon juice from the lemon. and a little bit of vanilla extract. Now if this was still a little too thick, I could add some more lemon juice or a splash of milk to thin it out. But in this case, it was just right. It's actually been about 2 years since I've made this recipe, and I'm sure it will not take Mr. Smith long to get into it. While I was here in the kitchen, I decided it was time to wipe down and dust, just give the kitchen a nice blessing. I knew this wouldn't take long. With the weather being as hot as it has been, we tend to do our evening chores a little bit later in the day, hoping for some cooler temperatures, but there's not much chance of that right about now. Milk Dud is doing fine. He's back to his usual self after his run-in with the wolves. We still put him up every night to keep him safe, and probably will the rest of his days. The ducklings get fresh water several times a day, and as you can see, they're starting to get in their real feathers. In the heat of summer and the high temperatures and not a lot of rain, we find our beautiful creek slowing down to barely a trickle. I'd say if we don't get rain soon, it won't be long before this is completely dried up. There's still some fish down there in the pools, but they won't be around much longer either with the water snakes that we have that live here. They make quick meals of them. Here I'm giving Sophie a little bit of care with her hooves and then spraying her down for flies. The flies don't mess with Amos a whole lot, but they always go after Sophie's ankles, so we really have to keep the fly spray on her ankles all summer long. As we finished up the chores, I headed over to my clothesline and grabbed one of the dog blankets that I had washed, giving it a good shake to get all of the hair off there as much as possible. What a mess. But I'd rather that be outside than in the house. While I keep most of my clothespins in a basket in the house, I usually keep a couple of them out here on the line for just the random things that we hang out here. And with that, it was time to shower up, get cleaned up, and then settle in for the evening with some leftover Italian squash casserole. That is it for today, folks. Thanks for spending some time with me here at the homestead. I'll talk to y'all next time.